Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, continuing to bring you our predictions for these remaining conferences as we inch closer and closer to the start of the college football season. And today, we're taking a look at the Conference USA, one of just 3 Group of 5 conferences to play football this season. And of course, they adapted the same method that many conferences chose to do, playing the normal conference slate with up to 4 non-conference games. Oddly enough, the Group of 5 programs chose to go that route, while the Power 5 programs choose to just go with a conference-only slate or maybe just 1 or 2 non-conference games. But the Conference USA kind of followed what the rest of the Group of 5 conferences chose to do, and we're going to break down these standings and our predictions for all of these teams here, with the exception of Old Dominion, who chose to sit out of the season. The Monarchs chose not to play football in 2020, and you can see by some of the numbers up here that kind of screwed some things up. Every team in the East is now only playing 7 conference games, and there are 2 teams in the West, that would be Texas San Antonio and UAB, that will only be playing 7 conference games, while the rest of the teams in the West will be playing 8. All of those changes, of course, coming because Old Dominion chose not to play football in 2020. So keep that in mind as we go through here. Also keep in mind that not all of these teams are playing the same amount of games. Keep in mind that some games may be added later on, some games may be canceled or postponed later on. Like we've said earlier, and we'll continue to say, we're doing the best we can with the information that we have as of right now. And we're now really 6 days out from week 1 of college football beginning, so we need to jump on these and hit the ground running. So we're going to start over here in the East. And remember, guys, it's the conference games that matter the most. Don't pay too much attention to the amount of games that each team's playing. Pay attention to the conference records, because that's how these standings are organized here. And in the East, we have the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers winning the division. And you look at the difference here, guys, between the East and the West, and it's very evident that the East is not very competitive. You look at Western Kentucky, they are by and large the front runner in this division. You might see a team like Middle Tennessee State, maybe Florida Atlantic, Charlotte even, maybe battle for that top spot. But there is a significant talent gap between Western Kentucky and everybody else. And that's evident here. We have the Hilltoppers going 8-3, 6-1 in conference play. It's a 2-game difference between them and the Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee State. When you look at Western Kentucky, they had a fantastic season in 2019. Went 9-4 in year 1 under their new coach in Tyson Helton, and they have so much talent coming back. Their defense is going to be led by D'Angelo Malone, had over 10 sacks on the season last year. They allowed just 20.1 points per game, which is a very impressive stat within the Conference USA, I should add. They lose their star quarterback in Ty Story, but they bring in another transfer quarterback. Remember, Story was a transfer from Arkansas. They now bring in Tyrell Pigrome from Maryland. And if he, of course, is given the starting nod, that gives Western Kentucky a dangerous dual-threat quarterback with some solid Power 5 playing experience to lead this team that's looking to maybe win a Conference USA title. Keep in mind that the Hilltoppers also have 1,000-yard rusher Gage Walker. So from top to bottom, offense, defense, Western Kentucky owns the edge in the East, and that's why we have them winning this division, guys, with only 1 conference loss, and that, of course, coming on the road at UAB. We'll touch more on that later. Right below them, we have Middle Tennessee State. And you look at this, guys, they were a very disappointing team last year. You usually don't see Rick Stockstill-led teams struggle that much. The Blue Raiders were always very used to contending for a Conference USA title, or at least being a perennial bowl team. And last year, in 2019, the Blue Raiders went 4-8. And if you don't believe me in saying that how well Middle Tennessee has played over the past few years, that 4-8 record last year was their first losing season since 2011. Middle Tennessee's first losing season since 2011, guys. It was an unbelievable mark. So Rick Stockstill continuing to do a great job down in Murfreesboro. And you look at this, Asher O'Hara, the quarterback for Middle Tennessee State, that is the key for them this season. He is the quarterback that averaged over 300 yards of offense by himself. over 300 yards of offense by himself last year to go along with 29 total touchdowns. Dangerous dual threat quarterback in O'Hara. So while I think the offense will be fine, it's going to be the defense for the Blue Raiders that has to step up with only three returning starters back on that side of the ball. So don't sleep on the Blue Raiders. Probably the biggest test and most dangerous test in terms of offensive firepower and skill and also coaching to Western Kentucky, but we're still giving the Hilltoppers the edge in the division. Below Middle Tennessee State, we have Charlotte, who surprised everybody last year in year one under Will Healy. So the East actually did have a lot of surprises in 2019. You had Charlotte, who played very well. Western Kentucky, who played well. Florida Atlantic, of course, doing a fantastic job winning the Conference USA under Lane Kiffin. Middle Tennessee failing to get a winning season. So a lot of wild stuff to happen last year in the East. I don't expect that much to happen this year in 2020. You look at Charlotte, though, they are coming off their first winning season and their first bowl appearance and their first bowl appearance, really. They didn't win. They got annihilated by Buffalo. But a lot of firsts for Charlotte under first-year head coach Will Healy, going 7-6. They return a lot of firepower on both sides of the ball, but none bigger than their quarterback in Chris Reynolds. Very, very dangerous, guys. Accounted for over 3,200 total yards in 2019. Over 2,500 through the airs and over 750 rushing yards. So a lot of strength and a lot of the 49ers' success is going to rely on how well Reynolds plays and how well he is protected with only 2 returning starters coming back on that offensive line. I look at Charlotte. One thing that a lot of people didn't know is that they owned the 14th best passing defense in the country last year. They were 14th in the country when it came to passing yards per game. And that is something that will certainly serve them well against some very solid quarterbacks, not just in their non-conference games, but also within this East Division as well. You go down the line again, Florida Atlantic. Another brand new head coach here in Willie Taggart, because Lane Kiffin left to go to Ole Miss, and Taggart, of course, failed at Florida State and then remained in the state, coming over to Boca Raton to coach the Owls. You look at this, though, Chris Robeson, he's gone. He chose to just leave the Owls program. It was very unfortunate for Florida Atlantic, because I believe that their record would be a lot better than what I have them right now had Robeson chosen to stay. They also lose Miko Dotson, who ironically left Florida Atlantic to go to Florida State. So they kind of traded their star defensive player, and then they also traded coaches in a way, or at least Willie Taggart leaving Florida State to go to Florida Atlantic. So a lot of big losses on both sides of the ball for the Owls this season. How big of a difference is that going to make, and how big of a struggle will that be for Willie Taggart, who has really not been that great of a head coach anywhere he has been? Wasn't really that great, obviously, at Florida State. Wasn't great at Oregon. Wasn't great, I believe, at Western Kentucky and South Florida. So does Willie Taggart get his swagger back? Does he come back and lead Florida Atlantic to a bowl berth in 2020? Right now, with this record here at 4-5, it would be borderline, but they still finished with a losing record in conference play. Below them, we got Butch Davis and Florida International. They lose their star quarterback as well in James Morgan, a guy that, if you recall, back when the NFL draft was going on, we thought was going to be one of these sleeper picks. Not a high pick, but a guy that would be chosen very late and could end up having a very solid NFL career if, of course, he could stay healthy. But James Morgan is now gone, no longer playing for the Panthers. He does have a very, very solid wide receiver core. Keep in mind they landed the Georgia transfer wide receiver in J.J. Holloman. And we know that they also have a very strong run game as well. The defense was kind of shaky last year. They did make a bowl game, of course. They've made 3 straight bowl games under Butch Davis. They also returned 6 starters on that side of the ball and landed a lot of key transfers, which to me kind of got overlooked this offseason. So yes, we do have Florida International going 4-6 and having a losing record in conference play. If you actually look, we have a 3-way tie between Florida Atlantic, Florida International, and Marshall, all finishing 3-4 in Conference USA play. But regardless, Butch Davis will once again have his team in borderline bowl eligibility here. The key for the Panthers is finding that replacement for James Morgan and finding a guy that can zip it out to these very elusive wide receivers. And then finally in the East, we have Marshall. A lot of people will be surprised by that. Why is Marshall technically last? Because Old Dominion, of course, is not playing football. Look, Again, with some of these records, guys, you have to keep in mind when you don't get to play a full 12-game season, some of these records look very misleading. So having the Thundering Herd here at 4-6, 3-4 in conference play looks very bad, considering they are once again led by Doc Holliday as their brand new head coach. But Marshall's schedule certainly does not do them any favors, and what didn't do them even more favors was losing their star quarterback in Isaiah Green. That was a move that I think surprised everybody, because Green played extremely well last year, in my opinion, for a very young quarterback. So to see him leave the program was a huge loss for the Thundering Herd, who finally had kind of a dangerous 1-2 punch with a dangerous, elusive quarterback, and then, of course, the Conference USA Offensive Player of the Year in Brendan Knox. So the question here is, yes, we know Knox is going to play extremely well at running back, but if the defenses know they can hone in on him, then Marshall's not going to have an offense. Not going to be able to move the ball. So Grant Wells, the redshirt freshman, who more than likely will be the starting quarterback for Marshall, is going to have to step it up in a very short amount of time. Does not have much time to prepare. Once again, like those other teams before Marshall, right there on the border of making a bowl game or not in 2020. Kind of disappointing record-wise, but if you throw in 2 more non-conference games, say Marshall notches a win or 2 in those, you're looking at 5-7 or 6-6. In the grand scheme of things, that really isn't all that bad. We move over now to the West. We've wrapped up the East. A lot of stuff to talk about in the East. A lot more to talk about in the West because it's way more wide open than the Eastern Division. So much more competition there. You've got Louisiana Tech. You've got Southern Miss. You have UAB. And really, those are your top 3 programs within the Western Division. Because those Texas schools, UTEP, Rice, North Texas, Texas San Antonio, are all going to maybe improve ever so slightly, but are going to be nowhere near the point of contending for a West crown and a spot in the Conference USA Championship game. We'll start with UAB here, though, guys, the reigning West champs for the past 2 seasons. They won the Conference USA 2 years ago, and then they were annihilated by Florida Atlantic and Lane Kiffin last year in the Conference USA Championship. So you look at this game, and you look at UAB, and you wonder, how do they bounce back from such a disappointing season that they had last year, or at least ending to their season? Getting annihilated by Florida Atlantic, getting defeated by Appalachian State in the New Orleans Bowl. So what does Bill Clark and the Blazers, what do they do? How do they bounce back? Well, the one thing you have to sit here and really think about, guys, is that down the stretch of UAB's season, they were dealing with a lot of injuries to their biggest playmakers. They were dealing with injuries to Tyler Johnston III, their star quarterback. They were dealing with injuries to Spencer Brown, their running back. They're both going to be fully healthy now, guys. If they can come back fully healthy and they can stay fully healthy, UAB will once again win the West Division. There is no doubt in my mind about it. Keep in mind, we talk so much about offense. UAB's defense is one that's strongly slept on. They allowed opponents to complete just 51.7% of their passes last year. So only about 50% of their passes were completed last year for opponents, and UAB held their opponents to 23.1 points per game. Bill Clark has done a phenomenal job. He's 28-13 with 2 Conference USA title appearances since UAB football was reinstated now 4 years ago. Unbelievable job, and he's going to continue to do a great job here as we have him going undefeated in conference play. Right below UAB, probably their toughest test, Southern Miss. Very, very high on the Golden Eagles this year. They have 15 total starters back and one of the best quarterbacks in the conference in Jack Abraham. He threw for nearly 3,500 yards in 2019. And what's more impressive to me is not the amount of yards he threw for, not the amount of touchdowns he threw for, the fact that Southern Miss and Jack Abraham, he completed nearly 68% of his passes. 67.9% of his passes were completed in 2019. So Abraham's accuracy is truly remarkable, truly unbelievable, and will serve him well in a very big season for Southern Miss. He's the key to their success. The defense does need to step it up a little bit. They really weren't all that bad last year. They weren't great. They weren't all that bad. And so I look at that. If they can just improve ever so slightly, maybe 2 or 3 points per game defensively, Southern Miss will contend for that Western crown, and we have them doing so. Finishing 6-2, right ahead of Louisiana Tech, who continues to do a fantastic job under Coach Skip Holtz, who has led the Bulldogs to 6 straight winning seasons, including one last year where they shut out Miami in their bowl game. We've got Louisiana Tech here clocking in at 7-4, 5-3 in conference play. The biggest loss for them, yet again, like some of these other Conference USA programs, guys, is the loss of their quarterback in Jamar Smith. He was actually drafted by the Patriots, or picked up by the Patriots, believe it or not, but was a fantastic dual-threat quarterback. Better pocket passer for sure, but did have some dual-threat capabilities for the Bulldogs. So now it's all up to Aaron Allen, who is the front runner with the most experience within this Louisiana Tech program. And early on, I would imagine that Skip Holtz will be relying on running back Justin Henderson, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. The key for Louisiana Tech is not just their quarterback play, but it's also going to be their defense as well, as they lose their star cornerback in Amik Robertson and only return 2 starters on that side of the ball. So the offense, if they find a quarterback, will be very capable, can put up a lot of points. Will the defense be able to help them out a little bit to get some quality wins? And we think they do. We think a 7-4 record is pretty dang good considering the circumstances. Right below Louisiana Tech, we've got North Texas. That's where you see your separation, guys. Remember, we said that the West was certainly going to be way more competitive, at least towards the top, than the East. And after Louisiana Tech, that's where you see your gap between competitors and guys that are just going to be trying to make a bowl game or just trying to improve. We'll start here with North Texas. We have them coming in at 4-7, 3-5 in conference play. And the Mean Green guys, major disappointment last year. They were a major disappointment in 2019. Had a fantastic 2018 season, but went 4-8 in 2019. That was with quarterback Mason Fine, arguably the best quarterback to ever come through North Texas. So Seth Luttrell has to figure out, first, how do you replace a great quarterback in Mason Fine? Obviously, we know he wasn't up to par in 2019, but still, how do you replace a guy like that, and how do you improve a defense that allowed over 32 points per game last year? So the defense has got to step up big time. The offense, I do think, struggles mightily, and North Texas' schedule is not favorable in the slightest, at least to me. So we do have the Mean Green. Honestly, I think finishing with a respectable 4-7 record, notching 4 wins, 3 of which are going to come in conference play. They finished 3-5 in conference play last year. That's what we exactly have them doing again in 2020. Right after North Texas, we head down to Texas San Antonio here. So we had to go a little lower here. And you look at Texas San Antonio. We got them playing all 12 games, which is fantastic for them, and finishing 4-8. And why would it be fantastic if they're going 4-8? Well, because Texas San Antonio is dealing with a brand new head coach. The Roadrunners bringing in Jeff Traylor, the running back coach from Arkansas, a fantastic recruiter, and probably the reason that Texas San Antonio brought him in. He's never had any prior coaching experience. He's never even had a coordinator position. He's just a position coach, but his recruiting ability is absolutely phenomenal. So Traylor comes in as the brand new head coach down in San Antonio. They land a quarterback in Josh Adkins, transferring over from New Mexico State, a guy that, if you remember watching our New Mexico State video, we said we thought could maybe get New Mexico State to some sort of relevancy, maybe a bowl contention in the next year or two. We thought he actually showed a lot of promise last year as a very young QB. I believe he can show that same exact promise here, maybe in a better system and maybe surrounding himself with better talent at Texas San Antonio. So Adkins will be the key at quarterback, and like North Texas, the defense is going to be the key as well. The Roadrunners allowed almost 34 points per game and allowed 74 plays of 20 yards or more. 74 plays of 20 yards or more. That's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely embarrassing. Traylor's got his work cut out for him, but not as bad as you may think. Then finally, rounding out the final 2 here in the West, we have Rice and UTEP combining for 4 wins. Rice, certainly way better than that record indicates, though. They're only playing 9 games. 2-7, both of those wins coming in conference play. If you threw 3 more games on Rice's schedule, now they might not win all 3 of them, but they might win 2. Say they did win all 3. You're looking at 4-8 or 5-7, which by Rice standards is pretty dang good. I really do believe the Owls are heading in the right direction. I think Mike Bloomgren is doing a fantastic job with the Owls. I really think he is moving them in the right direction. They finished last year on a 3-game winning streak. They returned 10 starters on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a transfer quarterback in Mike Collins coming over from TCU. And I think that had this been a normal season, Rice could have surprised a little bit. Hopefully they'll be able to do that next year under better circumstances. And then finally, UTEP. Of course, they're 2-22 over the past 2 seasons. They've lost 11 straight games. Last year, only one of their losses was decided by 1 possession. I believe this is Dana Dimel's last year with the Miners. That's really all I have to say about that. UTEP is arguably the worst program in college football right now, maybe only ahead of Massachusetts. So rounding out the Conference USA, guys, you got your East Division, you got your West Division. Now we bring it down to the Conference Championship game. Western Kentucky at UAB. The Blazers finally getting to host a Conference USA Championship game after traveling to Middle Tennessee State 2 years ago and traveling to Florida Atlantic last year. The Blazers, we have defeating Western Kentucky in Birmingham in the regular season. That game set to take place in October. So about a month or two will go by before these two teams meet again. And I think for the second time, UAB will defeat the Hilltoppers. You know, they won the Conference USA 2 years ago, guys. They won the Conference USA 2 years ago. They got annihilated last year. And I'm telling you, that UAB team was obviously way better than the performance that we saw against Florida Atlantic. They were just a beat-up team. If the Blazers stay healthy, you can bet your money that Bill Clark's going to have his team fired up because they want to win the conference title on their home turf, regardless of if there are fans in attendance or not. So I've got UAB winning the Conference USA. They're going to make it to the title game for the third straight year, and they're going to capture their second title in those 3 years. And again, that is something that I guarantee no one thought was going to happen. No one thought was going to be possible when this UAB program was revived back in 2017. So all the credit in the world to Bill Clark and his squad. Certainly going to be my candidate for Conference USA Coach of the Year. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Our official Conference USA predictions as of right now, of course, always subject to change in the following days and weeks. But bear with us as we continue to go through this very uncertain and wild time as we get closer and closer to college football. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below, where you can follow us on our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now Patreon, where you can really help support our channel and help us grow and become a huge and valuable member to our Gridiron Expert team. And of course, check out everything on our website as well for exclusive content such as our expert picks, expert forum, and newsletter. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.